So I have something I would like to discuss.
Yeah.
Knowing that this probably does not paint me in a very good light.
It's what we do here.
Yes. It's probably a bit, I don't know, catty, I guess. But I feel like I am not the only one that feels this way. I may get pushback from you, but I think anyone who disagrees is probably lying. And that is, have you ever been connected to someone on social media? You're a Facebook friend, you follow on Instagram, whatever the platform is, you are friends or connected to someone on social media simply because you are entertained by the sheer train wreck that is their life, and you're just there to watch. That's it. Maybe you don't know them very well. Maybe you're friendly, but not close. But somehow you got connected. And what they post and their train wreck of a life is just so entertaining you can't unfollow or unfriend.
It is the digital version of people watching. And
Yeah.
we all love to sit back and say, holy shit, these people and all their differences and the entertainment value that comes with it. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it's like basically reality TV.
Yeah.
You know, you watch these reality TV shows because it's just a bunch of drama and ridiculousness, and you find yourself like laughing or yelling at the TV. That is what I find myself doing when I see a post that is just so ridiculous or hypocritical, or they're just so, I guess, unself-aware maybe. And you're just like, are you kidding me? And it's like, I can't look away, even though it's like, well, maybe I shouldn't be judging them. But they post it, you know, they are putting it out there for everyone to see. They are adding a bunch of people. You know, some of them are maybe trying to almost be like an influencer or something. So they're just collecting people and friends and likes and whatnot. And it's just the most ridiculous stuff that they don't see anything wrong with. And that's kind of funny.
So let's flip it and talk about the other side of that, which is the performative nature of attention getting in a digital world and even in public. Like the generation from earliest to latest, that is their world and life, to say and do things that draw attention to themselves. There's an addiction to it that's I've never seen before. And so it's not healthy. It really is not. And I think, you know, it feels good for people to acknowledge you when you have some kind of talent, like you put up some artwork or you're a great singer, or you can play on the guitar or whatever. That's all positive things because you're able to display some of your stuff.
Yeah.
But on the other side, the consumers of the crap TV and the train wrecks, right?
Yeah.
We're going to watch you, and the more outlandish and crazy you are, the more we're going to pay attention to you.
Yeah.
And so it feeds sort of the spiral down to the shittiest parts of our personalities.
It really does. It's awful. I have multiple times talked about how social media is just so awful. It has its benefits to an extent. But it is awful. And I'm not even talking about the things that they post that are, I don't know, I guess you could say like staged or purposely recorded, or, you know, things they're doing for content. It's just what is their everyday life. Things they don't even realize are ridiculous, are like the best. But it's so unhealthy in so many ways, but it's absolutely addictive. For sure. Yeah.
All right. So I have an idea, and I've actually been to a couple of these, and they're pretty interesting, and they kind of flip the script on that. So let's just say you gather up 1,000 people and you put them in a room, right? And guy comes on stage and he's like, okay, the stage and the microphone, we're going to open up one at a time. We're going to create a queue of people that just want to come up and say what they got to say. Give you the attention. This is your stage.
Is this like a No Shame Theater thing? Have you heard of that?
I've not, no.
Oh, I've heard of something called No Shame Theater, where stage is yours for 15 minutes. Do whatever you want.
And so like the social media version of that would be, you know, take a cue. You know yours is coming up next week. And then you get all of the travel the algorithms will serve to bring attention to you. And then you can prepare to say either the most ridiculous or the most intellectual or whatever. Put on your best
Yeah.
for that spotlight. And that way you get it out of your system, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't become addictive because it's required of all people to show off whatever they got. Do you think that would be really awesome or really terrible?
Well, the thing is I think it will still kind of be a little addictive because I think it may not even be so much them having this outlet to do or say whatever they have been wanting to do or say, but I think the feedback is addictive.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to want likes and comments and shares and positive reinforcement. And sometimes I wonder what would be worse for someone's mental health, to receive a bunch of negative feedback or nothing.
It's all the same. So you get a chemical response when you either get negative or positive acknowledgement for doing something, and that's what's addictive about it, is that once you get that high, your regular life like pales into it.
Yeah.
Right. And so just like an acting out 5-year-old, right? If they're not getting attention, they will do both things that will make you, if you condition them,
Yeah.
where you give them attention when they do something bad, then they do more bad things so that they get that same kind of attention. That's the craving that we have in the addiction part of it.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's so sad. It seems dangerous. This is even sort of going down a darker rabbit hole, but I just saw again in the news a teenager that killed themselves. And it didn't say why. It didn't say anything about a reason or social media, or maybe something happened in their personal life. I don't know. But part of me always jumps to, could social media have somehow been involved in this? Like, why does this keep happening? What is happening to our younger generation? And I mean, I guess even the older generation too, people who are on it all the time. It's just so interesting and scary to look at.
Let's talk about gatekeeping, okay? Because this is where one of those blessings and curses came down. Mm-hmm. So when I was growing up and I wanted to publish a book, right? I had to go to a publisher and I had to give them samplings, and they had to read through it and think it was good enough before I put my book on the shelf, right? Mm-hmm. And I got rejected probably 5, 6, 7 times. And I was like, why should these people come in between me and getting a book out there? You fast forward today and you can self-publish. Like, there's nobody sitting in. So what you have is way more books that get published, which means if you do get a book published, you just kind of fall into the ether, and it's hard to find them.
So much information.
And there's so many shitty books out there. So now I couldn't get published, and now I don't want to get published because of the same thing. There was a gatekeeper, and there's not a gatekeeper. So same thing with information. If someone sees other people getting famous and getting attention, and you're sitting there thinking, I don't have a talent, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to become famous. So then you go to the rabbit hole that you suggested, where shootings. Like, I want to be remembered for something. I don't want to just die and nobody even know who my name is. So I'm going to do something that I absolutely know someone will pay attention to me for. It doesn't matter if it's a
terrible.
good thing or
Yeah.
a terrible thing. And we make those people famous, which creates another generation of people who will take that outlet if that's, where their end is.
Yeah. And I think so many people now, their goal is just the fame. It's not like you said, I want to create something. I want to share a book or share my words or share my ideas, or I want to create art. Or I want to do whatever. It's just, I want the fame for nothing.
Yep.
I see it in kids all the time. My kids will say, I want a YouTube channel. Why? Well, so I can make videos. About what? What is it you're trying to share or convey or teach, or I don't know, just stuff. Like, they just want the fame, the likes, the recognition. And it's, to what end? Like you said, to what end is that going to be such a huge part of their life and their identity?
Yeah, and you see some of these people, and they're not any more talented than you are. Mm-hmm. And you think, I could totally do that, make millions of dollars and have a channel that, doing something like that. And the majority of people don't become that, right? And so it's almost like the little kid playing football thinking he's going to go to the NFL. Like, as a parent, are you like, let's manage your expectations on where this is going to lead? Are you going to make a living off of football, or is it, a pipe dream where you're not going to be the rock star on the stage? You might be in a band that's, putting a little bit of scratch together, but you're not going to be superstardom.
Yeah.
But it's enticing. Absolutely.
It is. I even saw my daughter had a little mini freak out when we were at the Canfield Fair, we're just walking through the fair, and she does this double take, and she's like, that woman's on YouTube. And I said, what? And she's like, the girl back there with the different colored hair. She's a YouTube person. I know her. I see her on YouTube. And I'm like, are you sure? Yeah, all the time. She has a YouTube. Oh my God, I have to call my friend. I have to tell her I saw so-and-so. She's on YouTube. And I said, for what? What do they do? Well, she's on YouTube. I said, well, if she lives in the area and you live in the area, you're probably being served videos of people that talk about the area. It's not really that big of a coincidence or anything.
Over a YouTuber.
Yes. And I don't even know, like, it wasn't even, something, a part of something she really likes or whatever. It was just, she's on YouTube. I can't wait to tell someone I saw a famous person kind of thing. And I'm just like, wow, it was kind of concerning.
Yeah. Well, I have a great deal of criticism for like a secular society. And I think a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with is a result of the secularization of everything, institutions and society and whatever. Because I think generally people are very destructive if they're not given guidance and purpose. And if you walk around and just ask general public what they're on this planet for, what greater thing do they serve, how are they going to be remembered, deer in headlights, because these are things that absolutely need to be served for us to be contributors and to live a happy life and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I think when religion was taken away, I think a lot of that purpose came on to you to decide what your purpose is. And I think people have a really hard time of leading themselves into some kind of purpose. So we create all these mini religions around things. And part of it is going to be, you watch these tribal groups form where you create an environmentalism church and you create a NFL team church. And we use the same principles in supporting those. We'll defend our beliefs in those things, and we'll be loyal to those things in our beliefs. And this is just one of the many ones. People are like, okay, I don't have any purpose. I want to contribute. I only have so many things that I can do. I got this YouTube thing, right? Or I got this Facebook thing. I'm going to go contribute there, and then that's going to be my purpose.
Do you think a lot of people see or are starting to see their purpose as something that is self-serving rather than serving others?
That's what human beings are all about. All of our vices will be revealed in the pursuit where you don't have morality and ethics that are ingrained. Yeah. And, I'm watching younger and younger kids that don't have a moral compass. Just yesterday, I was in a classroom of 6th graders, right? And we were talking about business ethics. And we were talking about how we want to be treated, how we expect others to, to behave. And I said, how many people here have stolen something? And about half the room, raised their hand. And I said, do you feel any remorse for having stolen something? 0 people in the class had remorse for stealing. And then I asked, how many people think it is a great tactic to steal something? And almost all the kids in the room raised their hand, where theft was not only frowned upon, but it was a strategy that worked.
So they not only didn't see anything wrong with it, they found stealing to be beneficial.
And they were marketing to me and trying to win me over, thinking with the logic and reason behind why stealing is an advantage.
Did they actually feel this way, or was this an assignment? Try to make stealing sound like a good idea.
No, this was not part of the assignment. And half of me, I've taught a lot of these classes, and all the time, there's always a thread of, I stole, but I know it's wrong. There was not in this class. And I almost felt like I was being punked. I'm going to teach ethics to a room that has zero ethics or ethical thought or moral thought. How do I, it's a little too late for a 6th grader to learn that you shouldn't, do the virtuous things and you should be subscribed to the vice.
That's terrifying.
I think that's where we end up. I really do.
I don't even know how to react. So you had to explain to 6th graders why it's not good to steal.
Yeah, well, and
I didn't know.
And I did the golden rule thing. I was like, do you like being stolen from? No. So why would you want to steal from someone else? Well, because they're going to steal from me. The whole logic was so twisted up, right?
Yeah.
And again, going back to the secular and the destruction of the family. Like, where else do you get your morals? You go out in society and you see people stealing and it's advantageous. Like, they're going to just learn what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like if someone doesn't see a consequence for someone else, then they learn it's okay. You know, you always hear people say, oh, when bad employees are not dealt with and they're allowed to just be bad employees, then the good employees suffer. Why be a good employee?
Exactly.
Gosh, that is so scary.
But again, without those things, that if I had a debate with somebody who is agnostic or atheist, and they say that human beings will come to the conclusion that secular morality is a thing. People will it'll occur to them to follow a path that is a righteous path, and doing the harder thing on the virtue side and putting the vices and keeping them under control. And I'm willing to listen to that, but human nature does not usually take people in that direction.
Yeah.
The easy ones or the hard ones, actually. Like, let's just say you and your family were starving, right? Mm-hmm. Didn't have enough food. You saw your family suffering, and you could go steal some bread from someone. Now, you're going to have to. The virtue part is that your family then gets fed. The vice part is that you got to steal in order to do it. Like, that's a real quandary that should pull and push on your morality.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to do which hard thing are you going to pick? But we're not even in that ballpark. We're not even having those considerations because the morality isn't infused in the belief. So if you're surrounded by 99% of the population who, when the means justify the ends, that killing, stealing, lying, trying to destroy you, everything on the vice list isn't a second thought, what do you think the next the world's going to become?
We're all sociopaths.
Yeah, who are feeding those vice instincts. Yep. Chemically addicted.
I often think too, and sometimes I'll have conversations with people who are much younger than me, and I explain to them what it was like when I was younger, about the just going outside and playing, the just knowing where your friends are because you saw their bikes at someone's house, or making plans to meet up for dinner or a movie. And you go and you hope someone showed up. You don't have a phone to call them. If they're not there, then you think maybe something happened. Nothing was documented like it is today. And it feels so freeing. Like, you think technology is this great thing, and it can be, and advances in technology can be so wonderful. But at the same time, it's like, was it not better in some ways before? Were people better before? It's just an interesting thought, I think.
Yeah. And I look to see what the barrier is to shift it in the other direction, and I don't see that barrier even existing. Yeah. And that's why I have a belief that we're going to continue to spiral until we can't anymore. And that's not a inspiring thing.
Yeah, it used to be, even if their goal was to just attain fame. I want to be famous one day. Back in the day, you sort of had to go find something you could be famous for, a skill or a talent of something. Now it's just, no, I don't have to do anything but learn how algorithms work, or learn how to boost things and get eyes on things. And actually, sometimes in a lot of ways, the way you get the fame and attention is by being controversial and negative, saying things that upset people, because that invokes a reaction. So now you're famous for being a jerk.
Yep.
And you get what you want.
Yeah, for sure.
Why wouldn't you be?
Yeah, and when there's major advantage in being a jerk, then you create more jerks. And so the virtuous path has always been the harder path. It takes longer to come to fruition. You have to put more energy into it. There's no free lunches. It's not something that's given to you. It's hard work to be able to do the virtuous side of things. And so if you're impulsive and you want gratification like right now, instant gratification, that virtuous side is not at all appealing to you. When you can have the Xbox right now if you go steal it, versus doing a paper route for 6 months and then finally getting it at the end of the the summer.
Yeah.
That's give a kid a choice in that deal, but don't have morality in there, and they're going to come the easy choice. They're going to get it the easy way.
I mean, you've heard people say things like it feels better to earn something than to be given something, and maybe that is true. But if they've never felt either one, or they've only felt being given, not the earning, then they're like,
and what direction are we going?
So.
If you look at society, if we model it and say, we're not allowed to have a lecture about it, just watch what happens in society. Are more people giving it because they want it, or putting your foot down, making you cry, and making you go earn it? Like, what's happening, what's modeled? The second of the two.
Yeah. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I wonder what it would even look like. But sometimes I think, what would happen if, even not forever, but for a period of time, social media was gone? Facebook is gone. Instagram is gone. Twitter, X, Threads, anything. It is gone, like we are in the 90s. What do you think would even happen? Like, how would people react?
Well, the immediate would be like an addiction withdrawal.
Yeah.
And those same people would be out in society trying to cultivate the same kind of responses because they're addicted to the chemicals that come along with it. Mm-hmm. So short term, it would be disastrous. You just have people acting up and whatnot. Now, I don't ever think that could happen.
Oh, God.
No,
yeah, no.
For sure.
No.
But I know from a physiological standpoint, what people would go through when something they depended on and spent so much time invested in would all of a sudden not have that kind of, be able to express themselves over those platforms.
I wonder, though, if down the road, I wonder what improvements would be made. And like anything, and not like, individual and their mental health, crime, things like shootings, things like stealing, just anything. It would be so interesting to see if we could conduct this experiment of zero social media, or maybe even conduct an experiment of people, just maybe just a handful of people, or in a region that just, it is gone. And do they thrive or live a totally different, maybe healthier way than those who have it?
Yeah, and I think the benefits we'd have to wait 5 years for, and all of the repercussions from that would be immediate. So that experiment would be the most short-lived experiment ever done.
So it's like we have this thing now that has hurt all of us, but getting rid of it will hurt worse.
Yes. Yeah.
So
that's why I say very little hope that we're going to do the hard virtuous thing and stopping it when we can't control ourselves. We can't control the rest of the public. So we're just kind of observers to watch this thing crash. And but fortunately, I think social media will lead its way right into virtual reality. And so I think that the human element, you're going to be like, if you're addicted to it, you're going to get it 24 hours a day, and you can go into the zone, and at least you can't hurt other people because you're playing in a world where everybody's NPC characters. And if you're going to bully someone or steal from them or whatever, it's not at least another human being on the other side of those interactions. And I think we're going to get so dangerous that VR is not going to be an entertainment device. It's going to be a holding cell for people who really can't participate in a real society because they're just too dangerous and uncontrollable and can't, tether their impulses.
God, it really just dwindles my faith in humanity. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing to ourselves? I even try to think, well, let's think of the positives of it. And there are some, I use social media to stay in contact with family and friends that I don't live next to. That's nice. But again, I mean, people did that before social media. People had phone numbers and sent things through the mail and whatnot. And
now the real question is, in an evolving society, is this a natural end that if we just wiped everybody's memory, removed everything, would we then be so hardwired to do this that we would just recreate it again, right? So I believe that we've probably had human beings have had maybe 10 go arounds at this, and we destroy ourselves in the exact same way, and then we're rebirthed into it, and then we just do it again. And some civilizations get further, some of them probably end super quick. But this may be version 10.0 of human beings, and the creator sitting back there watching it happen exactly the way that it happened before.
So it's like we will find a way to destroy ourselves, rather than social media being the cause of human behavior that is detrimental. Our detrimental behavior created social media.
Yeah, because we have those impulses, like we want relationships, and we'll figure a million different ways of getting relationships. We want to move around and be mobile, so we'll have millions of different ways of traveling and being mobile. We want belief in purpose, right? And so we'll invent a million different ways of getting belief and purpose. All of those things can't be, tamped down by anything, and even if the technology or the opportunity doesn't, we'll create it if it hasn't been invented already.
Yeah.
So how do we, like the big vices where if we disagree, right, and in some parallel universe, like we just kill each other when we disagree with one another. That's just an expression of. If we're like, okay, this isn't good, a lot of people are dying. Like, how would we then reverse engineer it and say, how do we get people to stop from killing each other when they have some kind of disagreement? So, like, we meet at the bar, like, at noon, go in the street, and we're going to shoot each other. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
So what makes that not appealing anymore? Do we evolve away from those impulses that are absolutely ridiculously stupid, right?
Yeah.
Is it religion? Is it a better society? Is it a morality that comes from aliens or, something supernatural?
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like you have to, I guess, teach better.
Who, though? Who has to teach? Whose responsibility is it?
That's the thing, is like, if like parents are teaching their kids and they're trying to create a new generation of a better way of thinking, in order to do that, the parents then have to be a certain way.
So then you have to make sure all the parents are on the same playing field and have the same ideas. If you don't get a majority of them, right, then there are going to be some people who are that way, but the advantage comes from the people who aren't behaving that way. So do you think it's possible to get all parents on the same page?
No.
All right, so if we're dismantling the family and giving 1,000 different reasons why the nuclear family, mom, dad, structure, the relationships with the communities and whatever, if that's now a thing that is no longer possible, give me your step 2. So the responsibility, parents can't do it. So who's the next person in line for the responsibility of morality?
Oh, gosh. I mean, my brain goes to teachers.
Okay, we'll pause right there.
Yeah.
We'd have to get all the teachers on the same ideology so that they can teach the same kind of morality.
You got to make sure the kids are there,
okay,
too,
and
which
the
is
kids
a
are there.
whole other variable.
So, again, another impossibility.
Yeah.
So move up the chain one more.
Community members.
People of your neighborhood, in your community. Again, same response, getting on the same ideals of what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
Not going to happen as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's never going to happen.
So here's where the bad part of this. So if you don't like hearing bad news, you can tune out right about now.
Great.
So what we have to do is we have to then separate. We have to put communities that have the same ideals separated from communities that don't have ideals, right? Mm-hmm. Separate them out so that we can have a group of parents that discuss what the ideals should be and then teach within, we like family, we like not killing people, not stealing and whatever. Mm-hmm. And we have other families like, oh, they're all stupid or archaic and living in the Stone Ages. Now we have 2 groups that are allowed to not step on one another, right? Not participate in going to the bank together because you don't want a bunch of criminals.
No interaction at all.
No interactions. Right?
Yeah.
And then they'll probably war against one another because now we've created a separation and now they have strength with ideals that are different. And so ideals that are different usually fight one another.
Yeah, especially if your ideal is stealing and killing is necessary. You're gonna cross over into the other
Steal from those
group.
guys because they're idiots. Like, they're stupid.
They're not gonna fight back. That's against their ideals.
Go get their stuff.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden those people are like, hey, I guess we got to fight a little bit. And maybe we got to kill a little bit. Do you see how this thing morphs?
Yeah.
And if you go back historically, you could see how it morphed from Puritan all the way up to today's modern society. Absolutely.
And why is it? And this question might be deeper than...
No, go deep.
Why is it that ultimately the choices will turn negative? That ultimately it will be everybody now has to do this horrible thing instead of everybody will fall in line with what's right.
I love that freaking question. I spend a lot of my waking hours thinking about this. Yes, and that is called entropy. Entropy is both a huge blessing and a huge curse. Okay?
Okay.
You can refer to entropy as chaos, right?
Yeah.
And in order to have a functioning family, a functioning society, you have to have both of them. You cannot have apathy where things are decaying and not moving and not innovating, not doing anything. You have just enough chaos to keep things exciting and keep going, down the path of becoming better. Every time you do a different thing, you create entropy. And you have to balance that out by creating some order that then takes the energy back into that deal. And once you know that those two things have to exist in harmony and balance, right, then you don't let your society get too much entropy. Because while so much good can come of entropy, it also has huge destructive power.
So really then, so you're saying in order for anything to advance
Yes.
in any way, you'd have to create the entropy,
Yep.
which will then create
Chaos.
And
then you reign in the chaos and order it. And then you're supposed to oscillate between the two. You got to get some order, and you got to get some chaos. And if you go too far in one direction, like they're both bad and they're both good. So if you go in chaos, you have anarchy, no rules, everybody's doing their own thing, nobody trusts their neighbor, you can't get anything done, even though the energy was getting stuff done because everybody's doing it. There's not enough order to make it so like I'm going to build a house and then somebody's going to burn it down. Like you don't build houses when there's too much chaos.
But that's the thing is what makes it go to that? What makes it to where, okay, we're going to advance, we're going to do some things. There's going to be a little chaos. And if nothing is done in the chaos becomes evil. Why? Why do people do that?
It's natural.
Yeah.
In order for the earth to come, something had to explode, right? Our whole earth, everything. If you look at nature and how entropy creates life, right? Without entropy, there is no life. Then you know that you have to have it, right?
Yeah.
And human beings are always going to chase down the thing that has the best results. And when the best results aren't had anymore, like you built a house, you took the risk, you took the financial, you cleared the trees, you built the wood, you exerted and created a different thing that wasn't there yesterday, right? And that you get to a point where it's not a rewarding thing where your house gets burned down, people steal from you and whatever. How likely are you going to build another house? Then it swings to, I had all this, anxiety and stresses because I created this entropy. I need some peace and harmony where I just need to do nothing and keep my brain, not be afraid of my neighbor and whatnot. So if it's a natural tendency, that's where we end up. And it's the intelligence of knowing that that's going to exist in nature to know that you got to capture the best of both of those things and mitigate the downside of both of those things.
And it's impossible.
I don't think I think we've been fighting this in our entire lives. So every religion, every structure, every institution, somebody recognized that and created those things for the sake of keeping those two things in balance. But we, very tribal people, we want to take something and it has to either be a villain, right, or it has to be the hero.
Yeah.
And so when we pick something, we can't say, well, sometimes this is a villain and sometimes this is a hero. Let's make best use of it. We're like, capitalism, it's evil. Socialism, it's evil. Like you can see,
everything is black and
white.
white.
Has to be binary. Has to be binary in order for us to function. When that's not how the natural world works.
Yeah, yeah. And so many things you see that too. Everyone's like, it's either this or this. But what about in this case? It's this or this, but it's not.
Yeah. Well, even the human body, we talk a lot of natural things, right? We talk about our health and whatnot. And what people know about their health is probably more wrong than it is right. So do you think that you can operate a body with no bacteria or viruses?
No.
Okay. They are instrumental in the function of the human body.
Gut bacteria.
But if you asked anybody, are viruses and bacteria good or bad, right? They'd be an easy villain to put up there because it's drummed into our head that this thing is a bad thing and let's combat all of the viruses and bacteria.
Yeah. Yeah. And people will just hear certain things. It's almost like it's a buzzword to them and they'll run with it in another direction. And for example, I got into a discussion with a total stranger on Facebook yesterday. Somebody made a post on Facebook. They were pushing an agenda, and it was about gender. And I just simply commented on it, and I said, by the way, your post doesn't make sense because in this post, you aren't talking about gender, you're talking about sex. They're actually two different things. I'm not trying to stir a pot. I'm not making a political discussion. I'm just letting you know sex and gender are actually two different things. So it doesn't make sense. Maybe word it differently if you're trying to make your point. I get what you're saying. Have a good day kind of thing. And then someone's like, what do you mean well, how many are there? It's only male and female. And I'm like, this is you entering a whole other discussion than I was. You saw this as a political debate, a controversial topic. You saw this as to what everybody's talking about in the news and all this stuff. And I said, not what I am getting at. I am talking about literal definitions of two words. I'm not putting any bias behind that.
Since you opened Pandora's box here, what is the definition of gender and sex?
Okay, so definition, I don't know. I'll give you a general idea. So sex is your biological makeup, basically. Male, female, things that make up your body, your hormones, your genitals, things of that nature is your sex. Gender are characteristics. It's not physical. It is, for example, examples of like male, female gender characteristics are like boys liking blue, liking to play with trucks, girls liking pink, wanting to play with dolls. A boy can still like pink and dolls, and a girl can still like to play with trucks and maybe the color blue. Their sex has nothing to do with that. The gender characteristics are things that describe your preferences, your personality, your way that you feel in your own head, what you identify as. It's not as physical as biological sex is.
What's the purpose of that word then?
The purpose of the word, I think, is...
Sex is so that you can procreate and create babies, and that's your physical... It's a physiological definer.
An actual, like, physical
Gender
makeup of
doesn't
something.
really have a...
Gender is, like, this. This is your sex. Gender's in here, if that makes sense.
Okay, so just a pointless term.
It's like when people have gender reveal parties, it's so funny. You're not revealing the gender of the baby, you're revealing the sex of the baby. You don't know what sort of characteristics, personality traits, mental feelings that baby's going to have towards gender, towards what they like, what they feel. You're revealing whether or not your scan showed male or female genitals. It's two different things.
Okay.
Yeah. And everyone's like, well, how many genders do you think there are? I was like, that's not the debate. That's not the discussion. I'm simply just saying they are two different things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got nothing to add to that one.
That's it. But my point with bringing that up is people wanting to sort of take things where they want it to go or hear what they want to hear or have bias behind something and almost like ready to fight, ready to get amped about something without truly listening or even really receiving information that they're getting. And I don't even remember the point that was on, but
No, it was that you had a debate and someone skewed into their biases and wanted to pick the fight about something that it's absolutely radioactive. So the minute that if you want to piss somebody off and grab some attention, you take something that, again, I don't argue this kind of stuff because it's meaningless to me. There's no function in it other than causing disturbance. And if you create a word that doesn't have any good that ever can come out, I just don't need the word. Like, there's no purpose in it, so why even use it? I'm not like a stickler to language where I have to keep a word existing for the sake of having it. It doesn't serve a purpose at all. Like, get rid of it. Like, who cares? Anyway, so last night, you sent me a RFK link that they were going to be talking about Make America Healthy Again.
Yeah.
And I missed it when it aired. It was last night, right?
I did too, yeah. It was last night, but it was like, dang near 10 o'clock, and I was unconscious by then.
Yeah.
I'm not staying up that late.
So I looked it up this morning to see if I could get the replay of it, and all I got was responses and reactions to it. And I was so thrown off by how much negativity that it attracted. And I don't understand it. It's almost like you could say anything, especially if you put "Make America ... dot. I don't care what it is. Make America prosperous again. Oh!
Nope, it's the buzzwords.
Absolutely.
Make America was a buzzword that was used by one side, which means you must be talking about one side.
You gotta hate it all. So I could say, make America have better water, right? And you think when you say something like that you're not going to have anybody that's going to be against water being better, right? But it does. It attracts it. So back to the for those of you who don't know, RFK Jr. is going to take on the health industry of poisoning people with their food and the over reliance on pharmaceuticals and really tearing down the institutions and making everybody miserable and sick. And you and I are big believers in that side. Yeah. And I'm very eager to see what he can do. Yes. I think the industries are too, hardcore and powerful to put up with one little, I don't think there are a whole lot of people based on the reactions that I got last night. I don't think there are a whole lot of people that will fight against those things. So I'm going to pause right here and I want to play this and then we're going to react to it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So give me your thoughts on...
Oh, there's a lot to unpack there. I was trying to make mental notes with every point he made. So again, I feel like to me, I took him as very much one of those people that it is this or this. You're saying this is all bad and this is not good for you and this is blah, blah, blah. No, that's not the case. You're saying that... this side believes this side believes this. No, that's not the case. He, again, is sort of pushing this narrative as he's speaking for what someone else is wanting to do. He's putting his own bias behind it, disregarding anything that was actually said or actually being done. Any thoughts there yet?
Because it's super hard to disagree to make people healthy. And the ideals is what makes people healthy. So I think before you even have that discussion that we watch, what's your definition of being healthy? Is it mean like he was talked a lot about money? So it was really sensitivity on his part.
Yeah.
That I'm talking about health, right? The feeding the body in its natural state without having to have a crutch of pharmaceuticals or whatever.
Right.
He's talking about keep your crutches, just make them cheaper. And that doesn't sound like it, if you keep playing that out, if we have we take health out of the equation, we shouldn't exercise, we shouldn't eat healthy. I don't think anybody's saying the person that's going to die if they don't have drugs, right? Take those drugs away from them so they just meet their maker early. They're saying, let's make less people need the drugs in the first place. When you're healthy, you don't need the crutch. Not like I'm going to take the crutch away from you if you actually need it.
Yeah, and like I said, he's making it so like you're either all for drugs and taking drugs for any and everything because it's going to help, why not? Or ban drugs and take no medication whatsoever. And that's not what RFK is doing, I don't believe.
Well, all of those issues are the same thing. Like every first response, like if 90% of the people are in poor health and don't have to be, and 10% of them are in poor health because of a disease or whatever, like I want to solve the 90% because that has the most people in it.
Yeah.
And I still serve the 10%. They're not going to be excluded from it. But I don't care if you're talking about abortion or environmentalism. It's all the fringe cases of the reason why we don't make any kind of changes and not the 90%. We can agree that people don't exercise, they're too dependent on medications, they don't eat right, and so on and so forth. Whatever your justifications, they will fight so hard to keep the crutch and they will keep the ailment. And they'll defend it with every fabric of their being.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I know someone personally. I argue with them on a regular basis that their lifestyle is terrible. It's very sedentary. They eat like crap. They're on numerous medications. They only even get off of one med and say, "Well, look, I don't have to take this anymore because they put me on this one." Or you could not eat shit every day and see what that does for you. And they don't want to. I don't want to. It is not in their lifestyle to watch their diet and exercise. They would rather live just off of a pill that will do things for them. You know what? Fine. Then there is nothing more I can do to convince you that one lifestyle will feel better than the other. That's the choice you've made. But I also think, too, there's a big issue as far as having that choice to make that. When he's like, oh, well, RFK is a hypocrite because obviously he's going to take testosterone. And, a lot of people have accused RFK of being anti-vax. And he has said, I never said I was anti-vax. I've been vaccinated. My kids are vaccinated. I just don't want particular vaccines. Where's the choice? We don't have a choice in things when if somebody is eating food with the intention or with the belief that it was healthy, that it was grown without pesticides, that it was made without preservatives or additives, that it was whatever, and it's not, where's their choice then to say, well, I choose to take this supplement because I like what it does to my physique, or hey, I choose to have this kind of diet because it's better for you, except I'm not actually getting that kind of diet because of what we're doing to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, this is related to the previous conversation because we want choices that are impulsive, that have consequences, and then we want to be free of those consequences. So I want to eat cake and I'll just do Ozempic, right?
Yeah.
I want to, the law, because again, the virtues in this are harder. It's harder to exercise, find better food. It's super easy to say, well, good food is too expensive and it's too far away from my house. And of course you're going to justify it and make reasons why it's harder for you than to do the other thing. That is the point. Nature will reward, right, the harder of the two, just like virtue. Your life will be better if you go the virtuous route, and it'll suck big time unless somebody comes down to rescue. And it's that push and pull where there's generations of people that want to be free of the obligations of those consequences. And we give into those. Mm-hmm. We reward them, and it's really hard to get somebody off of that teat once they're there.
Yeah. Oh, I was arguing with the same person recently. I was watching a bunch of videos and listening to a few podcasts about this particular doctor online who was kind of the same way, talking about the importance of brain health through what you eat, having foods that are good for you, getting exercise, watching the alcohol, things of that nature, things that I feel like most people could universally agree with.
100%, yeah.
Now, the person I was sort of arguing with said, well, I would never go to them. And I said, why? Because you'd have to change your lifestyle and you're not going to do that? Well, they sell supplements. They have their own brand of supplements. And I said, so because they believe in healthy options to the point that they created, and we're not talking about meds. We're talking about they make a protein powder, saffron, omega fatty acids, different things that are an option if somebody who needs to take those. Because they have that, you're not going to listen to them. That makes them less credible because she's like, oh, well, they're just trying to make money. They never said you had to buy their stuff. They never said, and it's all these different excuses. That is such bullcrap because you cannot say that eating better and exercising is not going to be good for you. It is. And all these people want to find ways in which they don't have to, that they can debunk someone who says that. But I need this, but I need this. Yes, there are cases that people may need something that they get from their doctor, that they get from a pharmaceutical company. Oh, their point too was, well, yeah, he tells his patients that they should buy these supplements and he's making money off of it. Have you ever heard of a drug rep that goes to a doctor's office or a hospital and sells them and gets them to buy and then prescribe their drug so that people can profit?
Same thing.
Yes!
Model has been set.
Yes. It's so frustrating.
So let me talk about this capitalism bit because this angers me more than anything. How much, we live in the luxuries that capitalism has created. And once we have those luxuries, now we can take the mechanism that created prosperity, and we're so naive about what it took to create these things that we're willing to sacrifice the golden goose, right? And then what ends up happening? Like, I'll give you 3 examples. So, for examples, so we had religion that populated a civilization that some of the things, some of the good nature, and some of the moralities, you get to experience the fruit of those religions. And we won't know how valuable they were until we cast the golden goose of religion out of society, and now no longer anybody is moral. And then we're around a bunch of immoral people, and we're like, how did that happen?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Second thing, founding fathers and the people who constructed the rules and that govern the place that we live right now, the hard sacrifices that people before us made, and we're like, oh, they were all stupid and poking holes in how archaic their rules and laws were. So we dismantle the things like, the anti-tyranny measures that were put in our founding documents. They were totally afraid of an oppressive government. And then we unwind all of that stuff. And now we're like, how does oppressive government come to be?
Yeah.
And then, like unions and what they fought for the wages and the work hours and, all of the benefits that came along with that. Well, after we have those benefits, we're like, hey, these unions, let's poke them and get rid of them. And then we're like, hey, how did a oppressive workforce come to be? So it's all these things. We take those things for granted because we weren't there when it sucked. Right?
Yeah.
We don't recognize the things that made those sucky things better. And so we piss them away. And then we come to the conclusion afterwards, oh, maybe religion was a good idea. Maybe a union balancer is a good thing. And the last one, this sort of makes it or multiple generational, but it's in the same lifetime. I work with companies who you had the founder that created the company that hands off the company to the next generation, and then they hand it off to the next generation. Well, the person who founded it, they had a way more uphill battle than the second and third generation. And they lose their perspective on when it was hard. And almost every deal, the next generation pisses away the things that made the company strong and made the company profitable because they weren't there to see it. They had no appreciation for what the first generation had to go through. And that's the same sort of metaphor for all of these other departments. If we don't respect the fact that there were good and bad in everything, we scrap the thing that provided it instead of just tweaking on it and making it better. Make religion so the pieces that you don't like are better. Make the unions, tweak the things that are oppressive and bad about it, and know that there's some value in there.
Yeah, and I think so many people are just so wanting to push back. There feels like today, in today's society, there's such a lack of willingness to listen to understand rather than listen to then say my piece. When you say things like, oh, maybe we should see that religion can be a good thing. Right off the bat, you're going to have all these people that are like, religion was meant to oppress and to control people and to get you to do things you want and to control your beliefs. And it was all brought on by these governments that just wanted to set these rules of what you can and can't do. And it was like, in no way did you even try to see the side that it could be good. It's everybody is so willing to point out something or somebody they don't like and try to justify why they are bad or why they don't like them and never consider another viewpoint.
Yeah. So if religion was there to control and oppress, and we break that away, how are we doing on the other side of that? Are we break through and show them that we could be good in spite of not being controlled? I don't think so. Maybe we need a little control. So the observation that there were some good parts of the controls in religion meant that you didn't scrap the entire thing and think that you could do better. It was created and invented with a certain purpose in mind, and it was probably serving some of those purposes. Again, take the pieces that suck and fix them.
Yeah. I mean, if you hear "thou shalt not kill," are you gonna say you should? And again, there's gray areas to that too. Well, what about when you kill in war? Well, should we not kill people in war? Should we? And it's never ending. It's never ending.
So you have macro people who look at things on the whole and paint the likelihood of things continuing and getting worse. And then you have the micro people who get really hung up on the details of contradiction and those biases in their beliefs. And there really, I think empath is the best way to describe. So when we said we have entropy as the movement and the little bit of chaos that invents things, and we have the empath of atrophy that you're not moving and you're just decaying, I think we are headed towards that apathetic phase, right? That we're going to try to, we're not doing there by intelligent means. We're not getting there because we think it's smart to be able to add some peas, get some consistency, let people rebound from all of the chaos that they've had. We're doing it because the warring factions are getting to a point where there's no winnable arguments. You can't say a smart thing that everybody can agree on. And as soon as you have that separation, right, between those two, like, do you really think political debate sways people? You really don't, right? Because you can't say anything without as smart as make people freaking healthy. Like, I'm going to run a campaign, make people not die.
Why is that a debate?
Make people not die. And we're like, yeah, but what about, right?
Yep. Or you'll say, oh, I think this is good for everybody and let's do this. And then the argument is, well, so-and-so said that already and people got mad about it. Okay.
How about let's try it again?
Yeah.
Name something. Name one thing that has no rift on warring sides about. Name one thing that you think it's
like universally agreed on.
Universally agreed on that it is good. Like, give me a good that is universally accepted.
I don't think I can. Someone is going to find something to push back on everything. On everything.
Mm-hmm. And give me a bad that is universally accepted as bad.
A bad that is universally accepted as bad. Now my brain is racing. Universally accepted that people are gonna...
That you would not... Well, there are certain things, like rape, for instance. Like, universally, people are not okay with rape. Pedophiles, not okay socially to say that you are okay with either of those things. But it doesn't mean it's a missing element that there aren't people that participate in those things.
Wasn't there something like maybe a few years ago, there was a group of people, I could be way off base here because I'm sort of kind of remembering. Wasn't there something having to deal with pedophiles, people justifying it? It's a mental condition like any other. And so let them have their own community of people that think there's nothing wrong with this kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Crazies
so
everywhere.
Do you think powerful people, we're talking Epstein, Pizzagate, trafficking in humans, whatever. Do you think powerful people partake in that? Do you think it's common? Do you think it's common?
That powerful people partake in like evil, bad things?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
Really hard, obviously, from the Epstein list. It's very hard to get caught and actually have some consequences. So, yeah, you're given a little bit of Nutrigrow to a very bad thing.
Yeah.
Human trafficking. P. Diddy, it just came out in the news. You read about that?
Yeah.
Okay. If you can get away with it, human nature kind of takes over and you do the bad thing because there's no really pushback against it.
Yeah. I feel like the more powerful you are and maybe the money and the influence you have, you could sort of own people to an extent. And even if you get some pushback or, oh, you don't like what I'm doing? Well, how about I pay off all your debt? How about I make your family more secure and you just look the other way? Mm-hmm. And that kind of goes back to that moral obligation where I don't want to look the other way, but oh my gosh, I am in a position that I really need this thing. And so now I'm sort of in the pocket of this bad person because I'm trying to survive, which I feel like you can see that instance in a lot of different areas too.
Yeah. So no matter what, I have the belief that all of those vices crop up everywhere. I don't care if it's in a school. I don't care if it's in the church. I don't care if it's in government. I think that's the natural tendency of the animals that we are as humans, and that is our default. Mm-hmm. Society counters that through controls to keep us more virtuous than we would naturally be. So if you
Like
want to be,
laws
if you want to be anti-science, you would say that no, human beings are good. If all you have to do is go out there and look at the animal kingdom or an Amazonian tribe somewhere to see if they've discovered virtue somehow through, show up on their beach and see if you don't get a couple spears through your face, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So as I'm saying, like, the anti-church crowd says that some of these vices are in the church, and that's a reason why the church, it's almost been branded as pedophilia, and the church are synonymous. That's the pushback.
Yeah,
against
absolutely.
it. And if it's a natural tendency of all things, of course it's going to exist in that deal. But I don't think that religion and its purpose is pro any of those things. Just like I don't think baseball is pro, shooting up, drugs for performance.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if it happened, you can't condemn the sport.
Yeah.
Especially if they do certain
all
things.
All of baseball is evil,
Exactly.
Because a few people did something.
But that's the observation and the acknowledgement is if it's going to be everywhere, then that's a real problem. And we got to agree that it shouldn't be anywhere. And so when it's your team, like it's happening in your church, like what's the reaction to it? Right? To get it the hell out of there because we don't want to be associated with that deal. But it's all these justifications that keep terrible behavior when it's on your team. The justifications say, well, it was a condition or that stuff.
Yep.
But that's the reason these will exist forever. And on the macro level, we're going to devolve because there's no answers to it. Nobody's giving an inch and making concessions. There's no real, people of different, persuasions getting together and trying to hammer out solutions.
Yeah.
If I want to blame you, you're evil, and you want to blame me, I'm evil.
Oh, yeah. And I've been told by so many people, and this could just be coincidental. I'm not trying to insinuate anything. It almost feels from my experience, the people that don't want to consider other ideas are sort of like an older generation, like people my parents' age and older are just so set in their ways that you'll try to get them to see something a different way, and they'll just say, I don't want to argue about it. I just don't want to argue about it. Well, we're not arguing. It's a discussion. There are differences. People can have a respectful discussion that maybe don't ever see things the same way again, but how they sort of discuss it matters. And yeah, a lot of them, I think, don't want to even attempt to because it gets heated or it's an argument or people get mad and it's like, why? Why does it have to go to that?
Well, two reasons. Powder butt syndrome.
Powder butt syndrome. If I'm old enough to have been able to powder your butt and change your diaper, then what you say is not. There's no way you're going to be right and I'm wrong.
That's right. I got the experience. Powder butt syndrome.
Powder butt syndrome.
That's a good one, right?
Yeah.
And you ever like really put time into an issue and have researched it and whatever, and you try talking to someone who you feel like just discovered this issue yesterday, so really nothing you can say, it's so complicated and it's such a long experience, I'm not going to be able to download my information into you. It's really not worth having the discussion. So you're not even on the same plane as me, so let's not have this discussion. So those are the two reasons why those people will never be able to talk.
Yeah. I've even tried to like tell somebody something, and as of lately, it has just been people that I know are sort of on this really unhealthy pathway and trying to sort of talk to them about things we talk about, things I see RFK saying, things that they can do that are simple that would greatly improve their health. And yeah, it could be powdered butt because they're older. It's just, it's almost like they're so far gone, they don't even want to try. I've been doing this for so long that I might as well keep it up. Or, the age old, well, it's worked in the past. It's going to work now. I've eaten that when I was a kid. Why can't you eat it now? And they don't want to. I've sent videos. I've sent different websites and things of sources and things people have said and done, and like people who are considered experts in their field and studies, and they're just like, meh, I'm not going to argue about this.
Think about it. That is dogma. It really is the same way we felt about religions, we put that same kind of religious dogma into things. We have our beliefs, we know it, you disagree with me, so we can't really even talk about it. So have a conversation about somebody who came out of the 20s, right? Mm-hmm. And they just went through a really tough financial time, and they're washing Ziploc bags, or washing things that you and I throw away.
Yeah.
Try to have that conversation, and you're going to be right. Like, Grandma, we don't have to save bags anymore, right? Yeah. And then Grandma's like, no, we absolutely have to save bags right more. There's a belief in something because of an event or a life experience that says, that was the most valuable thing I did at a time where I survived us through a period of time where other people were struggling, and I figured out a way not to struggle. I'm going to continue this because it's a smart thing to do to preserve what I have right now.
Yeah.
So but that belief is you can give all the evidence in the world that you don't have to wash your Ziploc bags, and never are you going to change their mind because of a belief system in what they did.
Yeah, just something they're so heavily ingrained in and used to that's it. That's it. I mean, I think people are even that way when it comes to their political party. You hear right and left, conservative, liberal, and those words have connotations to them, to people. The buzzwords have connotations. The symbols used have connotations. You know, it's to the point where, like, you can see an American flag in someone's yard and assume you know who they're voting for. And it was like, when did that become an automatic universal symbol for one side or the other, you know? And it's like, then you almost can't even, it gets harder and it gets harder to have any conversation or anything that you want to use as a road to change, because you've got this polarization that can't be changed because of what they're so used to. It's like round and round you go.
All right, so let's do a little hypothetical.
Okay.
This will be the last thing we do. And we have 50 states to deal with. All right, we're going to section them off, and we're going to categorize people. We're going to take our factions that don't get along, and we're going to separate them and give one faction an entire state, another faction an entire state. But we got to categorize them. So what would be easy one we just talked about? Let's put all the Democrats in one state. We'll put all the Republicans in another state, and we'll put all of the one do not qualify. So we got 3 states that are cordoned off, easy separation. Now, what other separations do you think we could make that remove those people from having to work and talk with one another?
Things to separate so they don't have to ever interact.
Yes.
Like they would have to have their own food sources.
Oh, sure. They'd have to invent all their own food sources. They'd have to be completely independent of one another. Maybe we can do some trade later on down the road. But for now, if we just, all of your beliefs, socialism and abortion and all the other political, boxes that you check, you can just do them. Like there's no limitation. So you want to do it this way, do all your stuff over this way, right?
Yeah.
And then you have free reign. You don't have to worry about the other tribe because they're in a different state. So what other separations can we make? Can male-female, can we separate and give males one state and females another state?
I mean, if you want to stop reproducing.
I think we're headed there already. So that's a slight consideration, but I think we're headed.
Sure. Okay.
So that'll be one generation's worth of experiment, and then that'll have washed itself out. Black, white, or white and all of the other ethnicities, separate everybody in the states.
Separate those out.
Okay. You're thinking, what would be the benefits? What would be the downsides? Would you have more or less fighting, less conflict, and whatever if you were among people who believed or were the same in some way?
Yeah, yeah. So even things like medicine, pharmaceuticals, things of that nature.
How about Muslim, Christian,
religions?
Other religion in those same camps?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, like, what other...
Like, what are we down to now? They have their own governments, I'm guessing, then?
Yeah, they're completely independent. They can do their own thing. Neither can influence the other one. They're just free to experiment in any way that they want. And removing them from fighting is the purpose. So you think of a warring 2 tribes, like Steelers fans, Browns fans get our own states. We kind of already do that, I guess.
Kind of like, both of you just separate.
It's exactly right.
Go to your own state. Go to your rooms. Get away from each other.
Yeah. Any other groups that don't quite get along?
See, we did political. Yeah, I keep going back to meds. You know, you have like anti-vax, pro-vax, anti-med, pro-med. Religion.
Kids and adults, we can have Lord of the Flies have a state run by kids because
Kids
they
and
are
adults.
they know everything. They really do.
Yeah, generations like a Gen Z or
Yeah,
a
give
boomer
generations their own freaking states.
Yeah, you know so much.
Dude, that one
You go and have your own state.
that might be the best idea that came out of this.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. Have we covered them all?
I don't know. I'm sure there's more, but those are the fun ones, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. So then what would we see? How they actually need each other? Or do you think?
Well, it can go two ways. They'd either fight each other, they'd be in groups, and we'd have our civil war between those groups, or they would just come back to assimilation, and they would say that was kind of stupid, and we need each other, and whatever. It might be that realization.
Yeah, because I think to be all or nothing again, you're going to see how variables come into play. You're going to see, yeah, I was sort of anti this, except in this case. You know, this thing happened, and so now we sort of have to give a little bit. Can we get someone from that side? You know, or I was pro this, and we should always do this. Oh, gosh, but except when that happens, then it doesn't make sense anymore. So, yeah, let's take someone from that
It would
side.
moderate things. Because we're
Yeah.
all grouped in there. We're not moderating. We're going in the other direction.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's an interesting thought experiment. And, you know, like I said, the people in the university up the hill, like, this is their Super Bowl. This is stuff that they should be
Yeah.
whiteboarding and problem solving. Instead, it's all political issues that we get no traction on.
And because I think people are afraid to get in trouble. You know, we talked to somebody that we know, we have a mutual friend, and they would teach communication courses and things of that nature. And I said, oh, you know, when I was in college, one of my most interesting classes that I remember was gender communications. And I said, do you still teach that? And they, you're going to pay me enough to teach that, you know, was the response, because of just so many ways that they could either get in trouble or get flack for it or offend someone or whatever. And so then people are like, well, I'm not touching that. I'm not even going to, nope, that's going to be hard, and that's going to cause a riff, and that's going to cause friction. And so it's either dive in and be the person that causes the friction, or be like, nope, good luck with that. I'm just not even gonna. I'm not gonna discuss politics. I'm not gonna discuss religion. I'm gonna keep to myself. And I think in some instances that's probably a good idea. But then when do things get done? When does change happen? When do people come together? When do you find common ground? You know, you're gonna have to find a way to find a middle ground on just about everything. So how do you get the people willing to do that?
You don't. It has to moderate, because you can't do it in this climate. You can't. You will make no traction in this climate. There's formulations, and that's what I'm saying. Like, from an academic standpoint, if you wanted to make a thing, you find its ingredients, you find the environment that it fosters something, and you say, "Yep, that's what we do. That's the model." Mm-hmm. Right? But if you're unwilling to do the formulation that got you there, then it's what we have right now.
And to me, I mean, RFK is such a good example of this. And I know I'm going to get flack. And some people love him. Some people hate him. Some people don't like him, or they think he's weird, whatever. Put in whoever's name you want in place of RFK. But there was someone who was, in my opinion, trying to have a middle ground, trying to not go to either side, trying to have some sort of discussion and way that we can sort of find a middle ground and not be so extreme to something. And what happens? Ultimately, they have to take a side.
Yep.
And when they take a side that they see value in, and it's not someone else's, oh, well, you're a traitor. You're a traitor. You must be a quack. You don't know what you're talking about, because they had to pick a side. Well, whatever side you go, you're going to hear that. So what are you going to do?
The natural pressures. I'm telling you, it's all in nature. Everything we're experiencing right now is biologically wired that this will be the place we find ourselves in every experiment.
And do you think any sides would be better if you took away social media?
No, because we would just invent whatever.
You would just find another way to be
it
stupid.
would. It's human nature.
Yep.